welcome to our thrifty and frugal and money-saving home here in Brittany in northwest France. If you're here for the very first time, my name is Jane and my husband Michael is behind the camera. We are early retirees and we are completely debt and mortgage free with paid up pensions that we live off, and we share all our money saving tips and life that we live here in France with you. And this week, welcome to our midweek money chat, which is all about ways that you can live off a low income but not be poor. So let's have a think about this. There are people we have known in our lives that have earned loads of money, and they've got nothing to show for it but debt. The big house, the big car, the fancy holidays, and big payments. They're paying for it, they're still paying for it. And then there are people that we've known and we know who live off pensions or small incomes or part-time incomes, who are really thrifty, really sensible with their incomes, who don't run up debts, who live really a comfortable and lovely life. So today we're going to look at the strategies and ways of how you actually do that. How do you actually live off a low income but not be poor? Now, the first thing that's going to keep you broke, that's going to keep you poor, is if you've got more house than money. You're living in a bigger house than you need, you're living in a fancy area, living in a fancy house, you've got the curb appeal, you're spending too much money on your accommodation or house, whether you're buying it or renting it or you own it. And it will keep you cash poor. There is the biggest payment you are going to make every single month is going to be either your mortgage or your rent. So let's look at practical solutions for that. People of our age are often childless. They've all grown up. They all have homes of their own. They've left, but they're still living in the family home. You have the option, and I repeat that, you have the option, should you wish to be cash rich, is to get a smaller house. Is this the time to downsize? If you're in your first part of your life and these are your early days, are you renting somewhere to impress your friends where you could actually still be in a house share? Are you buying your first home, or are you buying any home and you're just thinking, you just want to be impressed, you just think, oh, I've got to live in the best area possible? It is your choice. However, are you going to make yourself cash poor by having more house than money you've got? Just because the bank says this is how much you can borrow, it doesn't mean to say that you have to be suckered into that. My advice to anybody, and something that we've fallen flat on before and we've had to put right so we weren't poor, was to make sure that we were living in the most modest accommodation that suited our needs, the most modest area, the most modest house, or the smallest house that we possibly could. The smaller the house, the smaller the bills, the smaller the insurance. So if you've got more house than money, do something about it. Now, I have a question for you. Are you car rich but cash poor? Are you making a car payment every single month on that lovely car outside that you really, really enjoy, that you think, I work too hard to have a second-hand car? Well, it's going to keep you poor. Even if you just think to yourself, well, it's only 200 euros a month. It's only 250 pounds a month. It's whatever you are paying a month. That's cash you're not saving. That's cash you're not putting in your retirement fund. And that's cash that you're not putting towards your house deposit. It's going to keep you poor by keep making that car payment every month. Be realistic. Can you afford a second-hand car? Now, Mike and I sat down and did some research last night, and we looked at the UK website Auto Trader at the area we used to live in, which was Plymouth. And we found perfectly good, we would call them runarounds, a runaround car for between £500 and £1,000. They had MOTs on them, they had new tyres on them, and they had tax paid on them. And let's face it, if you're buying a car for £600 and it's got new tyres and it's got tax and it's got an MOT on it, you've basically got almost a free car. So it's crazy making those payments every month. So if you are on a low income, the quickest and easiest way that you can turn your life around financially and stop being cash poor is stop being car rich. It's the best thing. Eradicate those car payments. And one thing, if you're young or if you live in an area with good public transport or affordable public transport, do you actually need a car at all? Could you go 6 months without a car to save up to get that car you buy for cash, that runaround that will last, that will stay on the road for a year, that's going to get you going maybe for 1 year or 2 years, whilst you keep saving up a little bit more for something a little bit better? Stop making those car payments every month. And the biggest way to take your money outside and set fire to it and lose thousands every year is to lease. It's the most expensive way to own a car. So turn your life around, buy yourself a cheap car for cash. You will have money in your pocket, money to save, money to put towards your pension, money to put towards your house deposit, and it will stop keeping you poor. My next question, do you tell your money what to do, or does your money tell you what you can do with it? Because it needs to be the first one. Are you actually living on a written budget? Because with a written budget every single month, by the time you tell your money where it's going to go to save, where your money's going to go to sinking funds, where it's going to go on your utilities and living costs, and how much discretionary spending you allow yourself, the balance at the end of that budget should say zero, because you should know where all your money is going at the beginning of every single month. So get yourself on a written budget. If you don't know about sinking funds, go research them, go and look at, for example, Christmas happens every year, school uniforms happen every year, the car servicing happens every year. If you know your car servicing is going to be £200 or €200 a year, you need to divide that by 12 and save it every year. If you know you're going to spend £600, euros or dollars on Christmas, divide that by 12, that's how much you have to put aside every month. So, asking you again, are you telling your money where to go, or is your money telling you what you can do with it? You decide and get yourself on a written budget. Now, my next section I'm going to call Give It a Trim. You know, when you go for a haircut and you say, just give me a trim, you just want to cut a little bit off. You just want to cut a little bit off. Imagine if every single expense you had, you gave it a trim. So, imagine your shopping bill is €60, pounds or dollars a week, and you wanted to trim it by 5%. Well, trimming it by 10%, you reduce it by 6%. Reduce it by 5%, you are only reducing it by £3, euros or dollars. Everyone can do that. Everybody can do that. So what else can you do? You can reduce your use of your car, for example, by 5%. You can look at every single expense that you've got and you can trim it by 5%. Because at the moment we are looking at price increases which are higher than that. Sometimes you might need to look at the price increase and trim what you are spending by that. Now, you might think to yourself, well, that's a massive trim. It's not when you look at it monthly, for example, but giving everything a trim. So if you've got insurances that auto renew each year, they will go up. Make sure you are aware of when they come up for renewal and look for the best deals. Absolutely everything you can give a trim to. Your clothing expenses, give it a trim. We allow ourselves €300 each a year for clothing and shoes and coats and such things, and that might not seem like very much money, but when we can go to a charity shop and pick up a pair of jeans for €4 that are perfectly good, that money really does go a long way, and it means that we can trim that money. Trim it by 10%, you're taking €30 off that. Trim it by 5%, I'm only trimming it by €15 a year, but I can trim every single bit of my budget by a percentage. So all of those things that you can give a trim. Can you find insurance that's 10% cheaper? Can you drive your car 10% less? Can you? Now, if you put your heating on for 2 hours a night, that's 120 minutes. Can you reduce that by 10%? Is just turning it off 12 minutes earlier. That's cutting your heating bill by 10% every single day. So look at all your expenses. These are the painless things, aren't they? Give it a trim. Go on. Can you cut it by a little bit? Give every single aspect of your life a trim, and then you will give yourself some spare money and it will stop you from being poor. Now, next thing I want you to do is I want you to keep an eye on it, all of it. The budget, keep an eye on the budget. So you're going to have to record all of your spending. Every time you're going to spend, you need to say, how much money have I got left in my discretionary budget? How much money have I got left in my fuel budget for my car? How much money have I got throughout the year for the kids' birthdays, or money that you've set aside for day trips or treats, for example? You've got to keep an eye on it. You've got to keep an eye as you're going around the supermarket, haven't you, that you're not overspending. You've got to keep an eye on everything. Are you maintaining things? Now, a really good piece of advice that I would give to anybody, and we do this, we set a night every week, and funny enough, it's Wednesday night when we check our electricity meter. And we make sure we're keeping our consumption as low as we possibly can. And here's what you can do if you've never done it for the very first time. Take your meter reading this month, and let's say the meter reading stops in 100. I want you to take the meter reading exactly a week later to this date, and say, for example, it says 150. I want you then to take that meter reading again the following week. If it's 50, again, you can pretty much say within 2 weeks, it's a pretty much of an average amount of usage. And then with my previous thing of give it a trim, I want you to look at, can you use 5% less? And then can you make it maybe 10% less? But keep an eye on your consumption. Otherwise, it's like there's no good setting a budget if you don't stick to it. It is something that you've got to work at. It's something that you've got to do. Because one thing that absolutely will keep you poor is if you are not keeping an eye on your spending and you are not keeping an eye on your consumption. And the other thing you need to do is keep an eye on the date. Know when your car's going to be serviced. Know when your insurances are up for renewal. One of the best money saving things that Mike and I own is a wall calendar. We check it at the beginning of the month. We're looking ahead, what have we got in November, what's coming up, when are the birthdays. So we are ready for these things and we've budgeted for them, and we're keeping an eye on our spending. Because if you don't, it would make us poor. It really would. And by keeping an eye on it, we might have a low income, but we make sure that we aren't poor. Number 6, and I've titled this, It's Going to Happen. Now, I've often had people who make comments on my Facebook page, or for example, or in community groups that I'm part of, and I've seen that, and they turn around and say, what do you do about unplanned expenses? And I personally believe there is no such thing. Your car's going to break down, your washing machine is going to die, you will need new glasses, your teeth are going to crack at some stage and you might need emergency treatment for it. There are things that are always going to happen. Your washing machine will die and you won't be able to repair it, and it will need replacing. All of these things, everything is going to happen. It's going to happen. So you have to set up sinking funds for this. You have to have sinking funds for birthdays, your clothing, you're going to need it for something for your house, repairs, replacement, car servicing, I'm looking at my notes here, pet immunisations, another one is extra costs for winter. I know in all the groups that I'm on that here in France, people are going to start saying, oh, how much is it for 2 or 3 cords of wood? You got to be prepared for this. Winter's going to happen. Summer's going to happen. You're going to need your aircon serviced in some parts of the world, aren't you? You won't be able to live without it. You're going to have to pay for that oil tank or that gas tank to be filled up. It's going to happen. So you need to look at those annual costs. You need to divide them by 12. You need to be setting those aside every month, because nothing will make you poorer faster than lack of planning and this lump of money that you might have to take out of your emergency fund, for example, leaving you poor because you haven't realised that it's going to happen. Now my final one, number 7, and I'm going to title this of Don't Drip. Don't drip your money. Now, let's think of financial drips that people have that will keep them poor if they're really not careful. So, things that can drip. That coffee, that magazine, as you're going around the supermarket, that, oh, that's nice, oh, that's on offer, oh, that's lovely. Those little trips to the charity shop, those little bits and pieces you pick up at a car boot sale, this, that, and the other that you have not planned, that you think, oh, it doesn't matter. It's only a little bit of this, a little bit of this, and a little bit of that. Gorgeous Dawn over at Money Mum turns around and calls this death by 1,000 cats. It's these little bits of money that drip, 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 drip. Pester power of your children will drip money. Can I have this, Mum? Can I have that, Mum? You know you've got to give them money for certain things. You need to have that set in your budget. You need to say, no, my lovely, we have £10 a month for that. That's within our budget. That isn't. So do not drip your money. How can you get around that? Mike and I have a discretionary budget. Some months it's more than others. This month our discretionary budget was €57. Had we wanted to go out and eat, go out for a coffee, pick up a couple of books in a charity shop, that's the amount we allow ourselves. But you've got to do that too to stop yourselves from being poor. You've got to set that amount of money per month of discretionary spending into your budget each month. Then you give yourself permission to spend on those little things that otherwise you may not account for, and suddenly you'll be thinking to yourself, well, where's my money gone? It's dripped. So, number 7, don't drip. So there you go. 7 ways to live off a low income and not be poor. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for dropping by today. We love it when you do. We feel really privileged and lucky that you sit and watch us, and thank you so much for that. Can I ask you, if you're not a subscriber, to become a subscriber and you will never miss our new videos. And if you like our videos, go on, give it a like. Now, best of all, this is where I want you to be part of this wonderful sharing community. Tell me about the ways that you avoid being poor, because we've only got so much money, and if we spend too much, we will make ourselves poor. So tell me and share with everybody, what are your ways of making sure that even if you're on a low income, that you are not poor? It'd be great to hear from you. I love it. I feel really privileged that you share your warmth and kindness with all of us. It's really great. Just leaves me to thank you so much for dropping by, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.